on Friday. Now, what they're likely to agree, what we know they're going to agree, is an expansion of the sanctions against Libya and the Libyan regime. A number of named individuals, we should get more details on that on Friday, and also the Libyan Investment Authority, which of course is thought to be a front agency for Muammar Gaddafi and his family. Certainly that's what the critics would imply. The other measures that may be taken, we should get more details of those when the EU leaders sit round the table in Brussels, but certainly we believe that all 27 nations will start to speak with one clear voice. At the moment, a number of countries are making their voices most loudly heard, but as we've heard from NATO and from other countries, there are concerns about where this is going to go. The Germans in particular are saying it's fine to talk about a no-fly zone, but what's the out? Where do we get out? How can we get out of any problems that may occur? Is everyone thinking this right through from the beginning through to the end? And no one really wants to commit to long-term military action in that part of the world again. So the EU leaders will give us a clear direction from Europe on how they see this developing, what steps are going to be taken. But undoubtedly NATO has, in the last few hours, said to the United Nations, no-fly zone, we can do it, but we need your OK first.
Many thanks, Anna Fisher in Brussels. It will be interesting to see if the EU does give any clear direction in the next couple of hours or the next couple of days. Humanitarian assistance, surveillance and monitoring are currently what NATO's involved with. But while NATO members were seeking agreement on a possible military option, France took a significant political step on its own. After receiving delegates from Libyan opposition in Paris, President Nicolas Sarkozy recognised their provisional government in Benghazi. Tim Friend has more from Paris.
After being accused of being slow to react to the revolutions in Tunisia and Egypt, the French president has moved quickly to silence his critics and take the lead in reprisals against Colonel Gaddafi. Meeting representatives of the rebels at the Elysee Palace, he promised them immediate diplomatic recognition.
France has expressed its satisfaction about the creation of the Libyan National Transition Council. And after this meeting with President Sarkozy, I can say that France has recognised the Transitional National Council as the legitimate representation of the Libyan people.
The French plan is reported to include proposing limited airstrikes against key Gaddafi targets, such as his headquarters and a military airbase. There was no official confirmation from President Sarkozy's office, and it's a highly controversial proposal that would meet with strong resistance from many European allies, who are also wary of giving the rebel representatives diplomatic recognition at this stage.
That's a decision by a single government. I think it's better for us to listen to the stance of the entire European community.
The Elysee Palace says that Mr. Sarkozy is seeking legal authority to prevent the use of force by Gaddafi. It believes that jamming his communications would be a good start. Tim Friend, Al Jazeera, Paris.
Well, America's top diplomat says her government has been reaching out to Libyan groups seeking to oust Muammar Gaddafi from power. For more, let's go to Jane Dutton. And Jane is on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Jane, over to you.
Thank you, Stephen. US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton says she will meet with Libyan opposition groups here in the US, and when she travels to Egypt and Tunisia next week. Clinton told the congressional panel that Washington was making progress in order to isolate the Gaddafi government, but she also warned, again, against unilateral action by the United States.
I am one of those who believes that absent international authorization, the United States acting alone would be stepping into a situation whose consequences are unforeseeable. And I know that's the way our military feels. It's easy for people to say, do this, do that, and then they turn and say, okay, U.S., go do it. You use your assets, you use your, men and women, you get out there and do it, and you take the consequences if something bad happened. And I want to remind people that, we had a no-fly zone over Iraq. It did not prevent Saddam Hussein from slaughtering people on the ground, and it did not get him out of office.
Let's go to Al Jazeera's Patty Culhane. She's our White House correspondent. Patty, what do you think this suggests is happening within the White House?
Well, I think it was very telling, and it's really the first time that we have any sort of idea of the conversation that's happening when the president does talk to his national security team. And I thought it was very interesting that Secretary Clinton talked about why the administration is pushing so hard for international support. Now, she didn't say, as some of the experts have said, that the reason the U.S. is hesitant to act alone is because of how it would look to have the U.S. involved in a military action in another Muslim country, or that it would play into Colonel Gaddafi's narrative. She focused exclusively on the resources, what it would take as assets, what it would mean as risk. That's where she put the focus. And importantly, she said the Department of Defense agrees with her about questioning the effectiveness. Now, we have heard his other very trusted advisor, Secretary Gates, really question what it would take to do a no-fly zone. He's really in very plain language said that it would be difficult for the U.S. It would take significant assets. Now, what's important, and it was very unusual, some very key senators have pushed back on him on that, saying that he's dramatically overstating some of the concerns. Still, we do know that the administration is not going to change when it says we're looking to international support, and I thought it was also very telling that Secretary Clinton described it as having ambivalence in the international community.
She raised another concern, chemical weapons. She linked it with other nasty stuff. What does this suggest about the stockpile in Libya, if there is indeed one?
Well, it does make you want to know what the other nasty stuff is that she talked about. So far, officials here haven't officially talked about that, and they really haven't wanted to play up the issue of these chemical weapons, partially because there was a deal that the U.S. had with Libya, and those chemical weapons, the 9.5 metric tons of mustard gas, were supposed to be destroyed. They missed the deadline, partially because of a fight over funding with the U.S. Now, officially, Washington has been saying that they don't believe that Colonel Gaddafi or his forces had the ability to disperse those weapons. They believe that he literally bulldozed all of the munitions. They say that they know where these chemical weapons, this mustard gas, is being stored. You can assume that they're keeping a close eye on it. They'll tell you they're keeping a close eye on it. What we don't know is if Colonel Gaddafi or his forces made a move towards those chemical weapons, if they have a plan here at the White House to do anything about that. But I thought, again, it was very telling that she brought it up. She wasn't specifically asked about it on Capitol Hill, but she brought it up.
Okay, fascinating. Thanks, Patty Culhane. That's all for now from Washington. We're back later from Capitol Hill with much more, including to persecute or to protect. The U.S. Congress begins controversial hearings into the alleged radicalization of American Muslims.
And lessen their credibility as it relates to testifying.
Well, some of the developments in the US and Europe have been welcomed in the city of Benghazi, where the uprising began. Our correspondent Hoda Abdelhamid is there for us. So, Hoda, presumably they're happy with some of the fact that the envoys are being talked to on the international stage, but perhaps not so happy that there's no obvious sign yet of progress towards any kind of no-fly zone.
That's exactly right. I think they're happy of international recognition of the opposition national council, which seems to be increasing. I think they're happy about the fact that the situation in Libya is being talked about, but a lot of people would tell you that they're very disappointed that imposing this no-fly zone that they've been asking for over and over again for more than 2 weeks now is nowhere to come true.